want to talk to you a little bit today about gun control and common sense. The premise of having gun control laws is supposed to be to curtail the proliferation of guns in the hands of criminals, felons. Very little of it is useful. In fact, almost none of it. And why is that? Well, basically, felons don't obey the law. 85% of all violent crime is committed by just 7% of the criminal population. So, saying that a different way, only 7% of all convicted criminals, no matter what the crime is, only 7% of them commit 85% of all crimes. So if we were to incarcerate the most violent 7% of violent criminals every year, each year crime would go down by 85%, 85%, 85%. The premise of gun control is to keep guns out of the hands of felons, I'm assuming. But nobody seems to know, unless you've actually studied the issue like I have, nobody seems to know where exactly criminals get their guns. Because the Gun Control Act of 1968 and FOPA, Firearms Owners Protection Act of 1986, felons and anyone convicted of a crime punishable by at least a year in prison cannot own a firearm, generally speaking, in the United States. Now, if they can't own a gun legally, where are they getting them? Well, I happen to know. First, I'll give you the general statistics, and then I'll show these and break them down to you. This came from the United States Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Statistics through the DOJ does a study every once in a while. I don't know if it's annual or not, but they do a study about where criminals are getting guns. In this particular study, what they studied was recidivist felons. These are people with at least 2 felonies who committed a violent crime, a rape, robbery, aggravated assault, or homicide, with a firearm. And they looked up where they actually got their guns from. Alright. Are you ready for this? 42.4%. So over 4/10, 42.4% of felons who committed a violent crime with a firearm got their guns off the street, through the drug trade, through burglaries, robberies, thefts, and black market sources, basically illegal things outside of the control of gun control legislation, outside of control. They've obtained them illegally. 39.2%, almost an equal amount, comes from family and friends of the felon. Family and friends through some source, but family and friends. 11.4% come fraudulently through some form of retail source. That's sporting goods stores, flea markets, gun shows, just regular gun dealers, whatever, but fraudulently through some form of retail. A very small percentage of gun dealers don't have a problem selling to felons. It's estimated to be about 1%. I don't even know if I'm going to address that. But it mostly comes through lying on federal forms, providing false identification, and stuff like that. That's 11.4%. 6.9%, which is the last major category, 6.9% is unknown or not listed. 6.9% we don't know. Now, to break those down, I have all these. Hopefully you can see this. Top source, 22.8%. Through the drug trade or off the street sales. Second source, 17.9%. Borrowed or rented the gun from a family or friend. 17.9%. 13.5% bought or traded the gun from a family member or a friend. Remember, these are felons, okay? These are felons with at least 2 felonies. I'm making the wild assumption that the family and friends knew they were felons. Fourth category, 10.9% come through theft or burglary, robberies. 8.8% of the guns used in a violent crime by a multiple felon come through a fence or black market source. Someone in the underground who is a gun dealer specifically for criminals. 8.8%. 7.8% here in the middle come from a family or friend through other means not listed. What that basically could mean is the felon threatened a family member or a friend that if you don't give me the gun, I'm going to burn down your house. And they give it up reluctantly. That could be part of that. But family member or friend through other means not listed. 6.9%, we don't know. The study just could not come up with a category. 6% fraudulently through retail. It's talking about sporting goods stores or gun dealers, through lying on forms, providing false ID, portraying yourself in some way or another as a non-felon. 3.7%, same kind of idea, fraudulently through a pawn shop, where they lied on forms, provided false ID, got it fraudulently through some means through a pawn shop. 3.7%. 1.1% fraudulently through a flea market or yard sale. That's somebody selling a yard sale to somebody they don't know without obviously a background check. 0.7%, the lowest in the category, and in fact a lot of people in the FBI and the DOJ didn't even think that this was statistically significant enough to give its own category, but because gun shows have been blamed a lot, 0.7% from a gun show. It's astounding to me that gun shows get so much attention in the press when it's 0.7%, just insignificant. So, what might work? looking at these sources? Well, if you look at the first few, get them through drugs or off the street, family and friends, let's look at the first three. First three major sources. They stem from people who likely are already aware that the firearm transfer to a felon is illegal. But this transfer is rarely punished. I would say, why don't we consider a $5,000 fine toward a family member or a friend who gives, sells, lets them borrow or rent or trade a gun. I mean, they know they're a felon, yet they provide the firearm anyways. For providing that firearm, we got to have a deterrent. I would say that a good deterrent would be a $5,000 fine for selling a gun or giving a gun to someone that you know is a felon. 10.9% theft or burglary. I had a family member or a friend who was broken into, and 3 of his guns were stolen. Why can't we specifically punish people for taking a firearm during a burglary, a theft, or robbery? For instance, somebody breaks into a house, breaking and entering, and theft. They get the charge for the crime, they're convicted, but they don't take any guns, so they just get that criminal charge. Second guy does the very same burglary, same house, whatever, a couple months later, steals 3 guns. They should get a $5,000 fine per gun that's stolen. So that'd be $15,000 fine for the person who stole the guns from that house. Criminals don't care about gun control, but they would care about having to come up with $15,000. And this would be a mandatory fine. I'm not talking about something that the judge can dismiss. I'm talking about, you must pay this fine. If you steal a gun from a home during a burglary, you must pay this fine. I don't care if your grandmother has to stand in an empty parking lot with a card table months on end trying to sell cookies and cakes and pies to come up with money for you. I don't care. The fines have to be paid. You've got to have a deterrent. Again, down here, fence and black market, illegal gun sales on the street to a felon. They got to know the sale is illegal. Fine them. Fine them $5,000 per gun for selling to a felon. There's no punishments really. Not significant enough. You got to do something that affects their mindset. Down here again in the middle, family and friends. I know all my family and friends. I know whether they're criminals or not. None of them are. I'm assuming that if you have a family member who is a felon, I'm assuming you know they're a felon. I mean, who would have a family member that is off committing felonies and nobody knows about it? These family and friends who provide firearms to They're family and friends. They provide guns to felons through a family and friend relationship. They have to be punished for that. Where's the deterrent otherwise? The punishment should be, again, $5,000 per gun for selling to a felon, giving to a felon. 6.9%, we don't know where it's coming from. Obviously the source is illegal because, again, felons can't legally own guns. Fraudulently through retail, fraudulently through pawn shop, fraudulently through a flea market, yard sale, some type of cash exchange through fraud. Are people really being punished for lying on federal forms and providing a false ID during a firearm transaction? It's happening. Obviously the punishment's not enough. We gotta think up a punishment. And I don't even know if I need to address gun shows. Criminals don't go to gun shows. You know, whether you think a background check should be done at all gun shows. Somebody who knows they're a felon, put yourself in the felon's position for a second. You're a felon. You've committed a couple of felonies and you want a gun to commit a crime with. Are you gonna subject yourself to a background check? How about the universal background checks? Universal background checks has become an issue. Universal background checks. All the last few months, that's all I've heard. Universal background checks. That's the answer. Let me tell you something. If you think that somebody selling crack, heroin, whatever, trading drugs on the street or through the black market, or if you have a good friend that you know is a felon and you're handing them a gun under the table, if you think that a drug dealer is not going to take a gun from one of his customers without doing a background check, or if you think someone who knows their brother is a felon, if you think that they're going to take their brother, who they know is a felon, down to a local gun shop to do a background check, I can't help you because you're a moron. I can't say that any more kindly than that. If you think criminals are going to give background checks to each other, I cannot help you. I cannot teach you. I cannot inform you because you're a moron. There's been an issue that came up a long time ago. It was, the name of it is 3 strikes and you're out. It's another thing that would work. Basically, 3 convictions, 3 serious convictions of a crime, and you would be incarcerated for life. It's called 3 strikes and you're out. The first national group to push for 3 strikes and you're out legislation, who was it? The National Rifle Association, the NRA. The NRA wants 3 strikes and you're out. Fines. Family member or a friend sells, gives, trades a gun to somebody they know is a felon in their family, they should get mandatory $5,000 fine. I mean, if I had a family member who is a felon and they wanted to borrow a gun of mine, and I knew that if I did that, I was possibly going to be subjected to a $5,000 fine, I would say, get out of my house. Hello? Oh, why does that not make common sense? That's common sense. Another one is graduated punishments. In other words, I'm talking about for crimes of violence: rape, robbery, aggravated assault, and homicide. When I'm talking about when I refer to graduated punishments, I mean, if you commit a rape, robbery, aggravated assault, or homicide while in possession of a firearm, you should get additional time on your sentence, as well as a monetary fine. I mean, if a felon doesn't care about the time in prison, you know, they've been in prison 2, 3, 4 times already, and it's no big deal to them, then that's not going to be a deterrent anyways. But having to have them or their family come up with $5,000 for being in possession of a gun during the commission of that crime, that may affect their mindset. And what I mean by graduated punishments is 4 graduations: possession, brandishing, firing, discharging the gun during a crime, or injuring someone in the crime. And I'm talking about $5,000 fine for being in possession of a gun while committing a violent crime of violence. A $10,000 fine if you brandish a gun. You pull a gun out and you hold someone at gunpoint during a rape, robbery, aggravated assault, or homicide. That's a $10,000 fine. It was graduated up one more time. If you fire a cartridge, you discharge that gun goes off, fires the cartridge, bullet comes out in any direction, doesn't matter. You fire that gun during the commission of a rape, robbery, murder, or aggravated assault. That is a $15,000 fine. 15 grand. Imagine the streets that we could pave with this money, and the schools that we could build. Next is discharging a firearm and injuring someone during the commission of a rape, robbery, aggravated assault, or murder. That would be a $20,000 fine and an additional 20 years in jail for hurting somebody with a gun during a crime. So often, gun charges are dropped during convictions. I just don't understand it. I mean, we have 25,000 local, state, and federal gun control laws, and when it comes time for the court to look at that, the assistant DA, they drop the charges often, way too often. 2 more things. One thing, this really stuck in my mind. It happened in 1998, if my memory serves. It was in Rhode Island. I think it was Kingston, Rhode Island, but I'm not sure of the town. Guy awoke, homeowner, law-abiding homeowner, awoke at almost 2 in the morning to the sound of breaking glass in his kitchen. He wakes up, grabs a firearm in his bedroom, revolver, and investigates his kitchen. Turns on a light. In his kitchen, he finds the guy in his kitchen. Almost 2 o'clock in the morning. The guy is holding a hammer in his right hand and a screwdriver in his left hand. Hammer and a screwdriver. Homeowner challenges the guy at gunpoint to stop, or whatever he said. The intruder raised the hammer up over his head and starts lunging at the homeowner. The homeowner fired 5 out of 6 shots, 4 of which hit the intruder center chest. Within a minute or two, the intruder was dead. Homeowner was never charged by a district attorney. It was a justifiable homicide. After the investigation was over, law enforcement was rather shocked, and it made the newspapers rather shocked to find that the dead intruder had 29 felonies. Did you get that? 29 felonies. If the criminal justice system was broken, useless, didn't work anymore, what kind of things would we see as evidence that the criminal justice system was broken? In my mind, we would see people out on the street committing crimes who have almost 30 felonies. Hello. There was a case that really aggravated me in Philadelphia. I forget the year now. I think it was 2003. It's a Philadelphia police officer responding to a bank robbery. I think the officer's name was Stephen Lisbinski, I think. He was responding to a bank robbery in progress. Three young men were robbing a bank. Each of them had firearms, 2 handguns and a paramilitary semi-automatic rifle. The officer was shot multiple times with the rifle and died. The shooter was recently released from a previous conviction for none other than armed robbery of a bank. Armed robbery of a bank, convicted, time in jail, released early, kills a police officer during another armed robbery of a bank. If you were to add up all of the crimes on this guy's rap sheet who killed the police officer, he should have been in jail until the year 2036. 2036. He was released more than 30 years early. Mayor Nutter, mayor of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, held a press conference the very next morning blaming the NRA. The felon was released 30 years early from previous convictions. acquired the gun illegally, and the mayor holds a press conference the very next day, tossing the blame in the lap of the National Rifle Association. Are you kidding me? You've got to fix the things that are wrong before you start coming after people like me. Law-abiding citizens. I haven't even had a speeding ticket in 15 years. Perfectly law-abiding citizen. Yet, all government can come up with is burdens on me. We shouldn't have people sneaking around at 2 o'clock in the morning, breaking into homes with a hammer and a screwdriver, who have 29 felonies. We shouldn't be having police officers responding to bank robberies, armed bank robberies in progress, being killed by people released from prison 30 years early. Those problems have to be fixed before you even glance in my direction. I'm done.